Hello, everybody. We're going to talk about proofreading. The first step in proofreading is to do the easy stuff. You're going to check for proper punctuation and correct capitalization. Let's start with the first read through of your document. You're going to read the entire document, scanning for all the punctuation marks that you have, and you're going to check these things. Check that each sentence ends with a period or a question mark, just like this one does here. Note that in academic writing, it is rare that you would use an exclamation mark. Exclamation marks are used in novels, poetry, text messages, email messages, but they're rarely used in academic writing. Academic writing has more of an authoritative, somber tone to it. You're then going to check that each piece of punctuation has a space after it, but not before it, just like this one does. This is a properly spaced piece of punctuation. So here's the correct way. In academic writing, comma, space, the author should use an authoritative voice, meaning you're going to write with authority. This is incorrect spacing here, where there's a space before the comma or a space before the period. You're then going to look at your comma usage, and make sure that you're using them properly. You can use commas to separate list items. Here's an example. I have 3 list items. There's 1, here's number 2, and here's number 3. Make sure your list items are separated by commas. Notice there's a comma there with a space after it. Their tenses match, comma, and that's called a conjunction, and it's connecting you to the last list item. It tells the reader, here comes the last item, that they are spelled properly, and then end it with a piece of punctuation with no space between the last word and the punctuation at the end of the sentence. You can also use commas to offset introductory phrases. Sometimes these are prepositional phrases. They might be transition phrases like in conclusion or additionally. They might be setup phrases, those things I call the set the scene phrases, where you're setting the scene for the reader as you begin your sentence. Here's a set the scene one. When proofreading your paper, comma, check that the phrases you use to set the scene in a sentence are followed by a comma, like in this sentence. Here are some prepositions, coordinating conjunctions, or transition phrases that you might use to start a sentence. These would start phrases, and these are phrases in themselves. At the end of that introductory phrase, you always want to have a comma. All right, let's talk about capitalization. The first thing is in titles. Check out the title of your paper, and you're going to use title casing for it. Make sure it's title cased. Title casing is this. Capitalize the first letter of the first word, the first letter of the last word, and the first letter of all important words in between. This is the correct one. This is my title. Notice I've capitalized the first letter of the first word, the first letter of the last word, and the first letter of the important words in between those. Notice I haven't capitalized the I in is, because is a lesser word in this title. This is incorrect. It's incorrect for 2 reasons. One, I haven't capitalized the first letter of the last word or the first letter of this important word. It's also incorrect because I've put a period after it. Let's talk about punctuation for titles. When you're writing a title, the only piece of ending punctuation you'd use in academic writing is a question mark if your title is phrased as a question. Titles should not have periods at the end of them. They may have question marks if they are phrased as a question. So, is academic writing important to learn? Question mark? You bet it is. All right, sentence casing. You want to make sure that all your sentences are properly capitalized. So you're going to use sentence casing for all your sentences. The rule for sentence casing is capitalize the first letter of the first word of each sentence, as well as the first letter of all proper nouns within your sentence. Here's an example. If you are writing about shoes, you may write about brands like Nike or Adidas. And notice these are names of brands and companies, and so they are uppercased. Proper nouns are the letter I, names of places, names of companies or brands. So that's it. That's the first pass in your proofreading for everything that you write. There are a couple more things that you need to do for proofreading, but those will come in later videos.